There's this cool story in Exodus 33 where Moses is in a hard place. He's trying to mediate between God and Israel because God was wanting to make this covenant with his people of Israel, and Israel rebelled against that. And so Moses is trying to mediate between God and Israel, but he's really the only one trying to pursue God. No one else in Israel is really pushing for that, trying to pursue God. They made up their own God. They tried to, in essence, do away with Yahweh, while Moses is trying to press in and pursue God. But there's this cool passage explaining how Moses goes about this. It's found in Exodus 33, verses 7 through 11. It says this: "Now Moses used to take the tent and pitch it outside of the camp, a good distance from the camp, and he called it the tent of meeting. And everyone who sought the Lord would go out to the tent of meeting, which was outside the camp. And it came about whenever Moses went out to the tent that all the people would arise and stand, each at the entrance of the tent, and gaze after Moses until he entered the tent. Whenever Moses entered the tent, the pillar of cloud would descend and stand at the entrance of the tent, and the Lord would speak with Moses. When all the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance of the tent, all the people would arise and worship, each at the entrance of his tent. Thus the Lord used to speak to Moses face to face, just as a man speaks to his friend. When Moses returned to the camp, his servant Joshua, the son of Nun, a young man, would not depart from the tent." See, this is pretty cool. We see Moses in a hard situation where the spiritual atmosphere is very weak. Not very many are trying to pursue God. Most are grumbling against Moses and God for sending them out into the wilderness. So Moses takes his tent and goes outside of the camp, away from the noise, away from the distraction, away from the unbelieving atmosphere, and pitches his tent. His adamant spirit was that he was going to meet with the Lord. He just couldn't do it where he was at. So he went outside. He stayed faithful to God, even though Israel was unfaithful. And he allowed people to come and experience what God was doing in his life, experience the revival that was happening, that everyone that wanted to meet with the Lord would go there. But his pursuit of God was not based on the pursuit others had for God. You see that? He led people in the pursuit of God. He didn't let that dictate his own pursuit. See, I have a testimony of this where God really encountered me. I encountered God in such a wonderful way. I was at a gym. I just got done working out, and I was swimming. I was doing laps in the pool, and I was swimming on my back, just looking up at the ceiling, and my ears were underwater, so there was no sound. It was very peaceful. And I remember God just showing me and telling me all these wonderful things, all these wonderful adventures and things that he's going to do in and through my life. And that he just kept talking about that. And then at the end he said, "But the thing that you will remember and love the most is moments like this. Just you and me, no one else. Me speaking to you as a son, you speaking to me as a father." I'll never forget that moment with God, because it set me up for this joyful anticipation that my life is just going to be riddled with so many moments of one-on-one encounters with God like that. It is the deepest joy, is my heart's longing. That's why I love prayer so much, because that's just the place God meets with us to talk with us. The God of the entire universe wants to meet with me. You see, this pursuit of God is so, so critical, especially in a world where people are pursuing so many other things, so many vain and empty treasures, trying to fill that gap inside them, trying to gain as much as they can. And the culture we live in is very temporal, meaning we go on with our trends. It's a new trend every month. New stuff gets outdated so quickly, and there's always the new thing. And what that does is it tricks us into thinking that as long as we have that new thing, we're satisfied. It tricks that temporary gratification sense in us so that we just keep going and going and going, not realizing that our souls are actually burning out, trying to find what it is that fills us up, what it is that satisfies us. And we live in a culture that is so weak and so blind to these treasures, to these vain treasures. So much so that it's even crept into many churches where that's become the focus, material things, and the way services look, and the clothes we wear, and just all these different things that just take away from the pursuit of God. Culture has become so dissociated, with our phones and our technology. We are unable to really be present with people. It's such a struggle. It's so hard. And if we can't be present with one another who are, we see and we hear and we talk to one another, how are we supposed to be present with a God who is invisible? See, the lie of the devil is more. He's trying to trick us into thinking the more we get, the more we go after, the more money, the more drugs, alcohol, sex with more people, whatever it is, the more we get, the more we'll be happy. But really, it just carves out that hole even more. It actually makes that hole bigger in us, and that desire actually even falls away. See, the more we fill that stuff, the more that hole gets bigger, just like the people of Israel did. They would continually go after the fleshly desires, the temporary things. But we have example like Moses, who denied those things, again, went outside of the camp to meet with God. Pursuing Jesus was his number one priority. And he found the secret to revival in that. See, the secret to revival, it's pursuing God. We often think of revival as something that God sends at an appointed time. And there may be some truth to that there's special occasions, special seasons. But really, the way the Bible describes revival would be much different. It would be this, that God is always continually trying to revive his people, trying to stir our hearts up, bring us new life day in and day out. It's like we're a boat out on the sea. We're sitting there, we're on the waters, and God sends this wind to push us along, to move us deeper into this ocean of his goodness and his wonder. But if we have our sails down, we're not going to go anywhere. That wind will rock us back and forth, but it won't excel us and push us forward. Revival is this. God's always sending his wind, always wanting to revive our hearts. When revival happens in our life, it's when we set our sails out. We open them up. We pursue God and take our relationship with him more serious and deeper than we ever have before. And that wind catches our sails and takes us out. Oftentimes, too, what we see is we have that desire to go forward, but something keeps holding us back. We have our sails wide open, but we have our anchor down to the ground. That would be the past, failures, fear of what's in the deep. But my encouragement to you today is open your sails and cut off that anchor. Pull that anchor back in. Do not be afraid. Jesus is the one bidding you to come deeper. You are absolutely safe. Though the waves may be bigger, though the sea so much more powerful the deeper you go out, if Jesus is calling you out there, he will keep you safe. He will protect you. And more than that, you will experience the great joy and wonder of going deeper in this pursuit with God. You'll have your own, like Moses and Joshua, your own personal revival session. And the key to that is the more and more that happens, the more you lead in that and encourage others in that, then others start to do that. And then corporately, people begin to experience revival. That's when big splashes happen. That's when big things begin to happen. But it all starts with one person. See, I can preach as much as I want to anyone about God's goodness, about how Jesus died to save them, about going deeper in relationship with him. But ultimately, the only one person I have control over in this pursuit of God is myself. The same goes for everybody else. Now, we may be motivated by others and influenced by others, and that's a good thing. And we may motivate and influence others, and that's a good thing too. But the only person I, Skylar Geyser, have control over in this matter of pursuit of God is myself. The same goes for you. So I'm right now taking my relationship, my pursuit of God, much more serious than I ever have, and deeper, and asking God to take me deeper into him. And my encouragement today is that you do the same. Don't go after the temporary things. It's just a cycle. It's just going in a circle over and over and over. Same result. Emptiness at the end of it, and a burnt out soul and a worn out heart. It's not what you want. What you want is a heart revived, on fire for God, with a purpose. You know, God made you for a purpose. He saved you, and he made you for a purpose. To make this world a better place. To help others. He created you for a grand purpose. And ultimately, this pursuit of God, the end result, eternal life with God. Eternal life in paradise with Jesus. Being able to speak to him face to face and walk with him. How my heart burns and aches for that. And I hope yours does as well. I hope as I say this, it's sparking something inside you that wants Jesus more than you ever have before. If that's happening, don't harden your heart. Don't ignore it. Don't neglect it. Don't just turn this video off and go to bed. Take this moment to just pray, to be with God. And set in your heart that you're going to chase after God no matter what's going on around you. You know, Moses had hard circumstances, and the spiritual atmosphere of Israel was, like I said, very weak. But he said in his heart, he positioned his heart that he was going to pursue God no matter what. Let's be like that. Let's be like Jesus as well, who faithfully pursued God his whole entire life to the point of death, giving up his life for us so that we can have this same opportunity, this relationship, this doorway to God the Father, to have this relationship with him. Christ is our great mediator and leader in this. So I encourage you, go deeper with God. And don't be afraid. Jesus, is the one that bids you to come out into the deep.